Okay, so I've started the recording. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Tech Talk. So, what I would like to do today in the beginning of this session is to show you a new orientation plan that we are creating now for Android and for iOS, actually. It's something that has been like work in progress. We have these Trello boards that we use for orientations of new developers. But there have been some gaps or holes in the orientation, and basically it may be it's time to refresh some. And so we've gathered the list that you can probably see. Oh, you cannot see it because I'm not sharing my screen yet. Let's just share. You guys see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. So it's currently just a list of all the sessions that a new new employee needs to go through, a new developer employee, actually.
I'm not able to see you. Guys, I'm not able to see your screen. It's probably my side or...
Okay, it says showing main screen. So, guys, anybody else can see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
We see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, I think everybody else does. Maybe Elad, maybe you need to log out and log in again. Possibly. Okay. Okay, so basically, currently it's just a list of all the sessions that a new employee needs to go through, and basically there's the environment setup that everybody knows, and the sessions and all the basic initial setup. But there are a list of sessions that will be eventually part of the Trello board. The Trello board will be kind of refreshed, and the mentoring thing where every new employee has a mentor that help them go through the orientation and make sure that they know who should do each session and who they should meet and get to know. So I want to go over it with you, spend some time from this session to go over it, because basically it has just been finalized, if not really finalized, actually it's just been, at least the first part has been completed, and we are actually going to implement it for the first time next week when Hani, the new Android developer for the US team, is coming to Tel Aviv for 2 weeks approximately. And we'll go through this orientation with the teams here. So there is an orientation plan that we're planning for that. Specifically, the US team have currently only Simon, and he's not available at the US, so the orientation will take place in Tel Aviv. Orientation for Hani will take place in Tel Aviv. And so we came up with a list of sessions, and we'll split them between teams here. So first of all, I would like to go over it with you very quickly. And if you have comments, I will also share it with you so you can add your comments on this document. But if you have comments now or things that we should add or modify, then maybe it's the time to say. And then maybe we'll discuss a little further how the next week is going to look like, because basically it will influence some of the teams. It's an effort that all teams take together to pass the orientation for especially for the US team who are short in resources, basically. Okay, so the environment setup, basically the standard stuff. Okay, it's based on we don't have Android Studio, which is kind of funny. It was based on the iOS orientation, but yeah. So I'll probably add some things or modify things along the way. We prepared the iOS first, and now we're.
Sarfat, you can use the installation list that I used. Like you can take it as a reference.
It was based on it, basically, but the installation list that you created was meant for Android developers, and so we had to modify it to match the iOS
Yes.
orientation. But now this list basically fits both types. So yeah, we did use it, of course.
By the way, in general, I would just mention some. I think that the Xcode should be also installed for Android developers because there are a lot of Mac development tools like Git and stuff like that that
Yeah,
are
yeah,
part of it.
it's part of the Android orientation.
And I think that Android Studio is needed also for iOS developers as a reference. I have it.
Okay, fine. So we can add it to the other list. Actually, I have the other list open as well. So we can add it there. Shouldn't be a problem. Okay. So there is a lot of similarity, by the way, between these two lists. And yeah, I know it kind of reminds me of code duplication. I'm not duplicating code. I'm just trying to find all the similarities. So yeah, we need to set up the environment, register a new user, make sure that we create users for GitHub, HockeyUp, Trello, Linkit, Office Vibe, and we have also who is responsible for doing it. Basically, supports take care of most of the stuff for creating users for the various platforms. But yeah, we need to make sure that we go through the entire list so that we don't have holes. And now the sessions. So we have the intro session, the R&D as a community session by Udi, that explains how the R&D basically is structured and the idea of team of teams and that part. We have the GitHub procedures. There is some self-reading about how we work with Git, and then the workflow overview and creating PRs and code reviews and approving them, and etc. etc. Then we have the Zap product overview, which is typically can be passed by Ran. It's just a general overview of the Zap system, remote configuration, UI plugins, everything that Ran mostly does with the developers. And go over the Zap CMS, just the first overview for it. Then there is a Zap training, which is divided into two parts. First part is by support, which is getting to know the UI builder and the basics. It shouldn't be necessarily that in an early stage of the orientation, but it's just there, so it can fit anywhere within the orientation period. It doesn't necessarily have to be right in the beginning, but it can be basically everywhere. So the first part is done by the support team that go through the UI builder and the components. Actually, it might be that also Ran covers some of this part in the product overview, but not necessarily. So Ran, if you think that it should be covered on the overview session, then we can do it like that. Then we have the CMS training, which is support covering all the different CMS. And this is actually one of the foundation sessions that is going to be the base for many other sessions to come. The SDK structure and the models and the uploading sequence, etc., etc. So this is very important to understand pretty early in the process, in the orientation procedure. Server introduction, just getting to know the backend side. This is just an overview, and also for getting to know the people behind the server side. So either Garcia or Asaf can take care of that part. And then there's the Zap training part 2, where a developer goes through creating a new SDK, releasing a new SDK, all the procedures that need to go there. We have a different sections where we cover the plugins, but this is also part of the training, and this will be covered by a developer and not by the support or by Ran, so that they will get the developer's point of view of using Zap for creating SDKs and releasing them. And then we go deeper into the more code-oriented sessions, where we have the project structure in Android, the SDK, generic app, and the app and how they are created. There's an action item or a task at the end of this session for setting up the environment and using Zap for creating the workspace. And the session also deals with Gradle and Maven and how things are done when creating the APK. And Zap plugins and
Also, we need to mention Tzarfati, the bin tray, like a session about bin tray and the way we work there, because
a separate
it's important to
session.
understand. No, it's part of the Maven thing, because this is where we are hosting. So
Okay.
I think that it's worth mentioning, explaining what we do there.
Okay, good.
Not it's short, but just people
Yeah,
need
basically it's an overview. We don't want to overload too much information.
Yeah.
Yes, it's relevant to
Yeah.
when you explain on Gradle, you see some bin tray entries. So yeah, I guess that should be a part of it as well. Okay, so when we've covered the project structures and we know what the difference between the SDK, generic app, and the rest is, and Zap plugins and how they work, but really in high level, we can deep dive into the app flow using Applicaster models based on what we've learned from the CMS and the loaders, and how the app loads the Zap configuration.
So Fatih, related to that, I think that now, when we already have like some sort of a base structure of what is a data source plugin, I think it should be mentioned there. Because we are doing well, not 100%, but we're doing a shift of allowing not to use the Applicaster system and the Applicaster basic models. So I think that an overview about the structure of the data source providers is important. It's a core foundation of the.
Yeah, basically we have a session called Zap Pipes in the advanced training.
Good.
So yeah, it has to be, but I think for the major part of the orientation, it should focus on what we currently have and use most commonly, but we are obviously not forgetting what we are shifting to and the next step, basically. So maybe it's worth mentioning.
No, but just not a word that you wrote it, so that's fine. I agree, no problem. I just want to make sure that it's there. That's all. No problem.
Okay. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, so data source plugins, very high level, just to explain what they are, basically. And then deeper introduction into the SDK and the different activities, the base activities, the activity behaviors, the white label activities, the EPG articles, and maybe there are others that I left out. But this is basically a coding session where we go through lines of code and actually get to know the relationship between activities and the various components that we have there. We wrote here a session about the Applicaster player. We didn't specify too much what needs to be covered there. This actually is a TBD to understand exactly what are the areas that need to be covered as part of the player orientation. But this is the Applicaster player, not related necessarily to the plugins. But it might be worth mentioning that Applicaster player can be replaced by plugins, and there are hooks that allow that. And so the Zap layouts, it says here all developers know the Zap layouts framework and templates. Again, this is it comes maybe aside from getting to know the UI builder, but since currently with the apps for the most part are using the layouts, it's important to get to know them and understand how they work. But going forward, obviously the UI builder orientation will take more and more importance in the orientation process. And the JSON structure of creating that creates the layout. We have a tools section. Now we are the more general stuff. We have the tools section with CircleCI and ZapTool. And if there are other tools that are important here, maybe it's worth mentioning now. If you can think of other tools that can be worth to mention as part of the orientation.
ZapTool is iOS only. So
yeah.
Maybe here.
That's a leftover.
Yeah. So maybe you should talk about the build scripts of the Android.
Yeah, we covered Gradle in the beginning, but the question is, should we cover it in a more in-depth session? I'm not sure. Maybe the introduction in the.
In the introduction of Zap, I'm normally explaining the flow of the build. So I normally cover in high level every action that is done during the build process.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can always go deeper, but I
Okay.
think
There,
high level
obviously, there will be
introduction.
overlapping between sessions, and I actually think that that's a good thing, because it is good to understand things in different angles, and sometimes to repeat things as part of the orientation. I don't think it does too much harm. But okay, yeah, I understand. So Gradle will be covered in the orientation part. It's in the introduction part, so it's okay. The plugins architecture, what are plugins, and the repository for plugins, configuration and versioning, getting to know Zapifest, and the integration points, basically the hooks that allow the plugins to take action. That's that. And in the advanced training, we have the UI Builder API. So this is basically creating components to the UI Builder, creating new cell styles and new layouts. This is the advanced training. I don't think that there is too much knowledge around the R&D about how this is done, because not many teams have done it so far. But again, this is something that will take a more major part in the
So Fatih,
computer orientation. Yes.
so Fatih,
Mm-hmm.
related to the plugins,
Yes.
I think maybe how to set the environment for development plugins, it could be nice.
Okay, based on
Like,
work that you did just recently.
it could be something like that. It could be how to work with all the project locally, like the generic and everything, but still how to configure a new library, how to configure the configuration of the plugins configuration JSON and so on.
So it's the environment setup. How would you call this, a session or subsection inside the plugin section?
Plugin development environment.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Okay, so yeah, and then we have the Zapipes, React Native plugins, and there are 3 more sections that are not related. Well, they could be part of the SDK training, but since they are kind of isolated and they are sometimes unique to specific apps, we kind of left them to a separate section. It's the advertising part. Well, that's not too unique, but I think that deserves a session alone, understanding how advertising works through our system. And then there's the storefront, basically everything that is related to purchase, in-app billing and authorization providers, and the feed that is currently basically mostly used by the LATAM team, but could be potentially used by other teams as well. These are the sessions, and obviously each project should have the apps overview. Each team should have a project manager or GM review the apps and the customers, just so that people know what the region is dealing with and who are the main customers, and generally that area. So that's it. That's the list of items. I will share this orientation topics list with you. And so, as I said, and you can write comments, and I will modify along the way. And this will be the basic for creating the Trello board and mentoring. And obviously, these are just the topics, but the sessions need to be prepared. So everyone that wants to take part and actually create a session should ideally create some slides or some documentation that can be used in the future by the same person or by others. So it can actually, it's very important to have a unified orientation procedure to all the developers and not have them getting different flavors. Creating the list of sessions is the first part, but creating the sessions themselves is another story. And as I said in the beginning, next week will be our first chance to actually put that idea into place. where we have Hani coming over and we'll have the orientation, the first orientation with her. So she'll be coming to Tel Aviv. She'll be sitting mostly with the Europe team and the Israel team, and also, of course, the US team, but there are no developers here. So for the developer side, she will join the EU and the IL teams. And yeah, so we have a few more days to decide who is doing what. And maybe I can share a spreadsheet with all the session names where everybody can write their name next to a session that they would like to participate in. And that can help maybe to see who can do what and share this orientation procedure with everybody. And it's also a good training for actually start having these sessions. So I'll share both the session list and this spreadsheet where everybody can add their names. And we'll see who does what. Okay. So that's it on the orientation. Again, if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to do so. It was important to share with everybody because generally all teams are going to recruit new people at some point, and this procedure should be uniform for every region. I think it's important that all developers go through the same process. And that's it. That's about the orientation.
Good. Nice work.
Thanks.
What I wanted to say, something. I forgot. So let's start do. I think we have people here. Let's start do. Unless someone prepares something, let's do some sort of a short sync. I think no. So
yeah.
What do you suggest?
So let's give it first for a volunteer. Does anybody want to share something specific that they're working on that is relevant for everybody? I actually know that Elad Kariti wanted to share something. He shared it with me, but I thought we might be able to discuss this also on the Tech Talk. There is the login plugin. That is the login. Yeah, we've heard this name quite a few times, but there's the login hook for doing an authentication, basically. It's currently an interface, and Kariti consulted with me about changing this interface into an abstract class. Well, I wish he was here. He would explain it even better than me because it was just an idea that he presented. So maybe next time we'll talk about it when it becomes more relevant. But if somebody is currently doing, I know that Atanas, you are using something that is related to login. So we need to make sure that if these changes actually take place, that you are aware of what is going to be changed there. But yeah, I'll let Karin talk about it.
Are you saying that you're changing the login interfaces?
It's not changing the interface. Basically, it's changing it from interface into an abstract class. That's the idea that he presented. He didn't exactly specify all the details. But okay, I'll let Elad talk about it.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think it was mentioned already.
Oh, okay. So maybe I missed it. So thank you. If it actually takes place, I guess Elad will announce it either here or on Slack channel. What else? Does anybody have anything else to?
I want to make a small change related to the Android generic app. So I created a pull request. Actually, the things are well, I don't know if it's interesting, but it's something. I would call it something. So the way our build system works, it's that when we create a tag of a new version and we push it, what we do in the CI build Gradle file, I assume all of you know, is that we are fetching, basically what we're doing is automatic deploying based on the latest tag that was created on Git. I hope that I'm not saying something new. But so inside the CI build Gradle, we have a method called the get version ID. Get version, sorry. And the get version is running, maybe I can share the screen. Safat,
yeah, you need to make you a presenter, yeah?
You
need to be
well, it's not a big, it's something small, but it's very important.
You are the presenter now, Ran.
Thank you. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, so the thing is that we're using a method that is called, well, basically we are running this command. It's, let me just silence this for permission. Sorry for that. So basically what we do, let me go to GitHub. Let me show it. So basically, all our repositories are doing kind of the same. What we are doing is once we are running the tags, part of our deployment is running a command that is really deploying an AAR on Bintray. So we run the assemble release, Bintray upload command using the CI build Gradle. Of course, the first thing that we do is fetch tags to get the latest. So basically, once it finishes and all tests are successful, it runs the Bintray upload, which is this thing. It's a method that was taken from somewhere of publishing to Maven repositories, well, Maven, one of the Maven, I don't know how to call it, like source code management or something like that. We are using Bintray. And now as part of our, part of what we are doing is basically we are running, the tag that we are putting there is using the get version name method, which is running, you're still with me or am I to myself?
No, we're still here.
Okay.
Very
so
good
we
piece of code, by the way.
Sorry?
This Bintray upload thing is a very good piece of code, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think that we invented it. I think that we took it.
Yeah, that's what you said, right? Yeah, but it's good.
So we are using the get version name. And here we had many iterations on this thing. But basically what we're trying to do is to get the latest tag. Well, this is not bulletproof, okay? I can think about some race conditions that can occur, etc., etc. But it's supposed to be fine, okay? Let's assume that we are running a build. What it does is that it runs this command, which is git describe, blah, blah, blah. But apparently this is not good enough. The git describe sometimes is not 100% proper way to do it. I don't want to go to the story of annotated tag and non-annotated tag. It could be an interesting reading, but in general, there are light tags and there are things that are called annotated tags, and they are related to the fact that you put a commit message on the tag or you didn't. So when you're publishing a tag, you can either just tag the name and that's it, like, you know, running the command git tag and the tag name, and you can also put a message. If you're putting only the tag, it normally doesn't always set it as an annotated tag, which is causing sometimes not to get it when you're running the git describe command. On one hand. On the other hand, what I noticed a couple of times that I was trying to deploy an SDK, that I was pushing a tag and it was not fetching the latest tag using this command. So for example, I was, let's say that I published a version called 4.10, whatever, but when I was running the git describe command, it used to return me another tag, like, I don't know, 4.9 dev or something like that. And this is unclear. So I started to read a little bit and I found out a few articles that might be interesting or not. And again, it's in the pull request. It's like all this is an introduction for you to review the pull request. But anyway, there are some explanation about the fact that when you're running this command, it sometimes brings you only the tag that is related to the branch of the commit that the tag was set on. And if you are not exactly on this branch, it would return what they call the closest tag to you. So what I want to do is blah, blah, blah. I want to find it. And the article that someone wrote, it's not a new one. I need to find it. But there is an interesting article explaining why it doesn't always return the latest. Anyway, now I pushed, I created a pull request using another way that's supposed to return the latest commit from the latest tag from the current branch. And why it's important for me to mention it is because we will need to do it for the other project as well, because the Git describe is not 100% bulletproof. So this is why it was important to me to mention it. And that's it. And take a look at the pull request. I would love to see if someone has comments, if there is a better solution. But it's something that we need to solve because it causes many times a failing of uploading a version because it takes a tag that already exists on Bintray and it cannot upload. So you can take a look at it. It will be much appreciated. And if you have a better solution also, I would love to hear more. That's on my side.
Yeah, I think something similar happened just this week, I think in my team, where I think Merav created a tag, but it eventually took the wrong tag. This is what I heard, at least. It might be related to what you just described. So yeah, I think it's
this. Sometimes when you're running what I said, when you run this describe command, even though the tag is there, but the tag was committed on a commit from another branch,
yeah.
It doesn't bring. I will find this article that explained it a little bit deeper. The thing is that the article is a bit old, so the solution that they are proposing is not up to date. So this is why I chose something else, but the explanation is valid. So it's an interesting thing. We're not the only one apparently that are doing the deployment based on the latest tags. So the auto deployment based on tag. So something to pay attention.
Okay, thanks. What else, guys? Anybody else wants to share something that they're doing?
I wanted to ask something. What is the? I remember that Gil worked on upgrading the Gradle or Android Studio or something like that. What is the status of this? Gil, Gil is there, no?
Yeah. So actually, I went to a vacation just before I had the chance to finalize it. What the next step that should be done is a little change in the build script. I saw that there's the version of the Gradle plugin comes from the I can't remember the name of the task exactly, but if the SDK is below 3, it's 1 point something, and if it's above, it's 2 point something. I need to change it to support the new plugin, and then only then I will be able to push everything and to release a new SDK. Because if I don't, the builds will fail.
Okay, so it's something that you're
planning to finish? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I need to find the time to do it because I have some tasks on the Israeli team that I need to finish. I will do my best to build it.
I think it will be very, very helpful. I know that people, me, I'm less working on it, so I less suffer, but I know that people are suffering a
Everybody.
lot with the current Android Studio that is and the current Gradle that is it's an by the way, the Android Studio that most of us are well, I don't know most of us, but at least some of us are working with, the 2.3 or 2.2, I don't remember the version, doesn't matter. It has a known issue with large projects, build time. I think I sent it to Tzarfati when they mentioned it.
Yeah, it's 2.3.
So
everybody mostly are using.
2.3. Yeah, I think that this is the one that has the. So yeah, I think it will be very productive. Like it will increase the velocity, at least of the build Gradle runtime, or something like that.
And even more.
Guys, I haven't been using Android Studio for about 2 months now, and I'm very happy.
Yeah, but but it doesn't scale, because if you needed support for anything, or if somebody wanted to pair program with you on the code that you're working on your computer.
They can. I'm using Emacs. I'm using Emacs, and for smaller changes, I'm using Xcode. And it's a little bit like paper coding, but it's work, and it doesn't take forever to sync the project. It's like it takes a couple of minutes.
Okay, that's one solution for the problem, but the other is upgrading the Gradle and make all the Android Studio users happier.
I would say that if after we will upgrade, we will encounter a lot of issues. We will need to think about it. That's like not necessarily moving. You know, I introduced well, I don't know if I introduced, but I talked to Tzarfati earlier this year about different build systems and stuff like that. I don't know. Again, if the Gradle update.
Ran, Gradle is fine. Like it's just Android Studio, and it is blaming it unfairly on Gradle, because if you try to sync it with Android Studio, Gradle is syncing for 15 minutes. But if you use Gradle without Android Studio, it's 2 minutes.
I know, but still there is a lot of overhead. I'm not sure that I shared with you this. I shared with Tzarfati. There is an interesting video introducing a buck build system that shows some benchmarking. I give you the smallest example just for you to, I don't know if maybe you know it already, but the first process of the Gradle, what it doesn't matter if you run it from the command line or Android Studio. I agree with you about the slowness of Android Studio, no question about it, but in general, Gradle, when you're running it, even if you haven't changed one letter of code, it has a phase of configuration. What it does, and in our project that has, I don't know, 5 modules, it runs configuration on each one of the modules. So if you will press consecutive, whatever you want to say the word, 2 builds, like you press the play and you press the play again, you will have a overhead. It's not it will run the configuration phase of the Gradle, and it will take you something like, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, or maybe 1 minute, depends on the size of the project, only to run the configuration phase, even that you haven't changed nothing. So there is overhead using Gradle, and the fact that Google internally are not using Gradle is also an indication of something.
What are they using?
They're using Bazel. No, they're using Bazel. No, Make it's a little bit old. They're using Bazel. What I introduced, I don't know if I introduced again, what I talked to Tzarfati earlier is using Buck. It's Facebook build mechanism that Uber created a plugin for Gradle. Again, if we will be able to use the ecosystem, the normal ecosystem, let's say, that Android Studio is comes out of the box with, I think it's better. But if we will continue suffering of, I don't know, 10-minute build time, then I think that we need to do a rethinking.
Let's make a decision, because I think every single Android developer is suffering from this, and it's been like this for months.
No, this I know, but we are currently working. This is what Gil is working on, and it will be interesting to hear from Gil if he did the benchmarking. I haven't done. If he did benchmarking before the upgrade and after the upgrade, and then it would be interesting to hear. Atanas, I was really convinced you can add some quality of moving because it's not productive. It's really impossible. It's almost impossible to work like that.
It is. That's true.
So I was already convinced. Sarfati was able to push me back with good arguments. So I went back and like to understand what the new Gradle system and the new Android Studio will provide us. Maybe it's by factors faster, and then we will be fine. I don't know. I haven't tried, so I don't know.
There are other practices. Upgrading Gradle is just the first step. There are other practices that can be applied. It's just a matter of time and priority. And I think it should have priority for the Android developers because it affects the.
By the way, I'm not 100% sure that I shared this or not, but I would like to do that again. I read a very interesting article about of a person that was in the session in the Google I/O of how to optimize the Gradle, and he gave a very good. He gave some very good details there. I don't know if I shared it or not. If not, I will look for it. There are really interesting stuff there, but maybe you all know it already. So in any case, I will try to share it. Yeah, here I'm sharing it now. I will post it on Slack.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have approximately 10 more minutes or so. So if there's other projects or ideas to share, now is the time. Silence in the crowd.
Silence of the lamps. Silence of the lamps.
We have published on the Android Slack channel that and maybe there was an email that was sent also, that we reverted, the EU team reverted one of the changes in the SDK. There was a breaking change. It was introduced with the customizing the navbar. It was introduced by the LATAM team for doing customization on a navbar, but it was not supporting navbars that were using an asset rather than a color. So our layouts for ProSieben were broken, and we basically could not use this SDK. And we actually could not wait for a fix because we had to provide an immediate version for something that was broken in the store version. And we could not wait for this issue to be fixed, so we had to revert. And the LATAM team, of course, got the notice about it, and they will have to recreate basically the task or reintroduce the task.
In that, like for run, like in the UI builder, do you know how Pablo, or I don't know, work on it? Did it from the UI builder? I will set up the navbar and
I think that no, it's not in the UI builder. I think that I tell you what the aim was to do. I don't know what it did, but the aim was to do is to be able to differentiate between the UI builder is using one screen. It uses one of the generic fragment, whatever. And what the aim was to differentiate between white label and the generic screen. And I think that the logic that we would try to implement, that he was checking if the color is alpha. Well, I'm not even sure about that. But basically, to differentiate between the colors, if it's transparent or not. And
the problem is not the color of the top bar, it's the fact that the first cell is beneath the top bar.
That's what, wait till I finish and then you understand.
Okay.
I think that what the aim was is to check if the color has transparency. If it has transparency, I think that he put it beneath it, or I don't know, under, or whatever the proposition to explain that it's like two layers. It's like one on top of the other. I think that this is the logic, but I don't know what in the end was done there. I know that this is what was the goal. And again, the idea is to be able to control it from the UI builder when you have a section that will deal with the navbar. But of course, I can understand that the customers and the needs cannot wait for everything. So we need to give interim solutions. So this was the reason. I don't know what was the bug that was introduced. So I'm not aware.
I know, I can explain. So like I know what Pablo did, and I approved his pull requests. However, this broke ProSieben, and it broke it by just removing a gradient image that was used for the navigation bar. So is Pablo on this call?
Pablo resigned, left.
What?
Yeah, well, not that severe, but he just moved to another place. So no more Pablo. Well, until he will come back maybe, but for now, no more Pablo. Yeah. But again, what I understood from the comments there is that the fact that he, I assume, was not aware that there is a logic that is using an image on the navbar, right, Sarfati?
Yeah, these things are very difficult to track. Like even if you have test coverage,
it's not difficult. It's impossible. It's not difficult.
Well, I can think of one way of being able to track this. If you have UI tests and you're running them every night for each and every project, and you take pictures, and somebody in the morning checking the pictures. That's the way I can think of.
I agree, but it's very hard to maintain this kind of. I agree. We talked about it. I agree. Yeah. Look, what we will try to do. I'm saying it for a year, but this is the truth. Eventually, we will need to have what you call behavior testing or integration testing or whatever methodology, whatever, it doesn't matter. But in the end, the unit testing cannot cover everything. It can cover, not that we're doing a lot of unit testing, yeah, but we will need some sort of an integration test completely. I think that it will be easier once we will be able to, once most of our apps will be using the UI builder rather than layouts, because the diversity between layout is like huge. So it's very hard, and also inside each layout there are like flavors and stuff like that. So it's not, it doesn't really, it's what you're suggesting. I'm not sure that it's feasible. 100%.
It's long and heavy.
But once we will be able to connect everything to the UI builder, then we will be able to run the test on the permutation that the UI builder will allow you. We are not that far from that. Well, we're not that close, but it's a matter of months. And we need to think how we, meanwhile, like cover all these issues. But I 100% agree with what you're saying. It's very hard in the way we're currently working. Not in the way of work, but in the way that our templates are built, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Need to raise here?
Yes, if you have additional 5 minutes, I have something that I showed last week. I noticed last week. Maybe we can get some idea from it. In the generic, there is a CI build grader, and over there, what's happening? The SDK is coming as dependency, and not as in the build grader as a project. Now, what's happening that is taking the program of the SDK and basically doesn't encode a lot of things that is in the SDK level. Now, in the days that the SDK was integrated in other applications, not in Zap, it was very reasonable thing to do. But nowadays, I think it's going to be better if the SDK is going to compile with the generic as a project and not as dependency. Right?
There are a few problems with this approach. First thing, which is the most well, I don't know if one of the most important is the build time that it will take.
Yeah, but now we're speaking
and
about.
Also the second thing is the fact that we are still integrating. We are still integrating feeds and crossmates. So.
Okay. Far that I spoke with Udi, he told me that we didn't integrate, so maybe there is some misunderstanding. And about the Circle CI, we're speaking now, yes, for sure it's going to take more time to build, but maybe only in release build or something like that, we're going to do it that way. So the result should be that our APK and all the modular are going to be more closed. So it's going to be more how to reverse engineer. And inside there is the SDK, and now I'm not saying like, okay, maybe if they will integrate the feed, so it's maybe. If the feed is a different repository, it's not inside the SDK. Correct?
I didn't hear your last sentence.
The feed is different repositories, not inside the SDK, correct?
It's different repository.
So it's irrelevant. I'm speaking about the SDK.
I don't know. We need to see. I don't know.
Yeah, we need to think about it. This is the only point that I mentioned, that maybe we should think about it. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. I think we can wrap it up, no? So
Tzarfati just went for 1 minute. But yeah.
So Tzarfati, wrap it up. Cool. Thank you guys, the ones that were here, and publish this talk later. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Have a nice day.
Bye.